hearing in my head. Uh, all right, guys. Well, I'm grateful to be back. For those of you who don't know, I actually just got married recently as well. So literally came back about 14 days ago and just hit the ground running. Last 2 weeks were awesome, 22 grand, 15 grand. And I'm just super excited for, this push period that's coming up in SC2. It's always a great time. I always love pushing for SC2 since I was a brand new baby rep. So I put a lot of time into preparing this, this talk, this workshop, basically. And I've had a whole year to reflect on how exactly I created a $145,000 push. Because even then, like back then, it was, I wasn't expecting that. I was going for 100 grand and obviously overshot by a lot. And there's so many layers to what actually made that happen that I knew I just couldn't cover all of this in just 1 hour workshop. In reality, that's why we're doing a 3-part workshop series, because each part is built around a specific theme and each one's designed to go deep on that theme. So it's not just to scratch the surface, because the things I've had to learn, I've had to flesh out over these, last couple of years since I first hit 74 grand for my SC2 push. So I want to give each piece space that it deserves. So here's how it's all going to lay out for you guys in these 3 workshops. So part 1, this is what we're doing today. This is pretty much the vision building. This is where everything starts. This is such an important phase to a 50K plus push. And the reason why we titled it 50K plus push, not like big push, 20K, is because I always feel like that 50K mark is like the first hurdle that people want to kind of get through and push through. Now, the number that you guys pick can be anything. It can be 100 grand, it can be 200 grand, it can be 150, it can be 75, right? But in reality, like my opinion on this is a biased opinion on what a big push is anything over 50 grand, right? I think that's when I start seeing, the actual work it takes to make that happen. Because anyone can accidentally sell 10 grand for SC2 push, reps do it all the time. Anyone can actually even sell 20 grand, maybe 30 grand. But I think 50 grand, that's when you start seeing those limits and those barriers, going through. So part 1, vision building. Part 2, so the next call that we have is going to be the planning phase. We're actually going to design your push plan, right? What's the math look like, the schedule, the pipeline, all of it, right? And part 3 is going to be the execution phase. So basically what the daily systems look like, the standards for me, the skill sets that I developed as well too throughout this push period that I think really made a big impact on the 150K mark. When things got hard, especially. So basically, decision, design, discipline, right? That's the 3-part series that we're going to be doing. So what I asked from you guys during these workshop series, right? I know it's very easy to maybe just put this on and, do your other side work on the side, answer some emails. But what I ask from you guys, if you're genuinely serious about having a big push this summer, right? Pay attention, take notes, and engage. Right, I'm going to be asking you guys some questions to be putting into the actual chat box. I'd love to see that engagement as well too, so that we can really work together on this versus just me talking at you. Right, that's the big thing. These workshops are designed for you to answer questions yourself, but you can't answer those questions if your mind is elsewhere. So I promise you that at the end of this hour, that text, that customer, right, that email will be there. Right, your time and your presence in this call will not. So before we dive in, let's do something real quick. In the chat box right now, I want you guys to put in what your biggest push to date is, whether it's SC1, SC2, CSP, right? What's the biggest push period you have had, right? And I don't mean the biggest sales you've had in a given month because you had the, obviously your events line up. I'm talking about where you said, I'm going to go after this goal, and I went after it. I kind of want to see what we have in the chat so far. All right. So we got 15K, 8K, 13K, 25K, 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 27K, 16K, 6K, 30K, 3.5 grand. Yeah, Rossi, 8 grand. Okay, cool. All right, so we got a good amount here, right? Just different variety. 42K for Rob. Awesome, Rob. Great job. Cool. So awesome. This is great. Regardless of what the number is right now, by the way, guys, doesn't mean it's forever. I just want you guys to kind of look at the number. I don't know how you feel about it, right? Maybe you're proud. Maybe you look at it and you think you could have done more. Maybe you're slightly embarrassed by it, or maybe you're like, it's just a number. Doesn't matter. Here's why I ask, because there's always whatever emotion is attached to that number, we have to lay that to rest. We have to set it down because the goal from these workshop series is not to just hit that number again, it's to surpass it. It's to elevate beyond it, to push yourself past whatever you currently believe you're capable of. See, the number is your starting point, not your ceiling. And everything we're going to cover today is about building that foundation to make sure that the next time this question is asked of you, it's one that surprises even you. So, brings me to where we start. Before we talk about anything else, no numbers, no planning, no demos, no events, right? I know you guys probably want to hear the service call pitches that I did and whatever events, I find that that secret sauce, like it's helpful, don't get me wrong, but behind every great result you've ever seen, every record, every breakthrough, every moment where somebody does something that makes you think, how did they freaking do that? It all starts the same way, with a decision, right? With a decision. Not a wish, not a number you wrote on paper because someone asked you to, not a goal you said because it was expected of you. A real decision, right? And that's what I wanted to start with you guys, is the decision to go for it. Because I want to draw a line, by the way, right now between these two things, because most people have been doing one and calling it the other. They'll state a goal that sounds like, hey, I want to push for 50 grand this SC2, right? Or I want to push for 75, whatever. Versus deciding, right? Deciding, stating a goal and deciding, two different things. Deciding sounds like I am committed to the actions, the identity, and the standards it takes to produce $50,000, regardless of how I feel on any given day. All right, those are two completely different things. And the results will always reflect on which one you actually did. Because I knew that before going after 100 grand, I wanted to have a big push, but every day never aligned with that decision. It was just kind of like how I felt in the moment. And that kind of got me to where I am at, or where I was at that point, but it wasn't going to get me to where I wanted to go. And here's a sentence, by the way, that I find that kills more pushes than ever before. It's not the lack of skills, not the lack of names or lack of time. It's people that say, or reps that say, I'm just going to see how it goes. Right? I'll see what happens. Like, yeah, we'll see what happens. It's like you're giving yourself that exit before you even start. And the moment you say that, you've already basically given up. You're building that escape hatch before you started. And on the first hard day, the first canceled appointment, first week where nothing goes right, you're going to look for that exit every time. So today is not about getting you excited. I don't want you leaving here like hyped off of a feeling that just wears off on a Thursday, right? It's just about getting real and honest with why you're even on this freaking call. Like, are you on this call because Dante said you should be on this, or do you actually want to achieve these big pushes? Right? Because the most dangerous rep is not the person that says, I can't do this. It's the one that says, I want to, but never actually decides. So with that, let's bring it to the first point here. I want to reframe what, this push is basically. See, people, when they see the number, right, 50 grand, 100 grand, 75 grand, a couple of different things happen. They'll think either, A, I can't do that. Their brain shuts down before they even giving themselves a chance to think through what it would actually require. Other people will hear it and they'll dismiss it. They'll think, yeah, I mean, I could go after that and sell that, but I don't know if I want to, right? I don't really need to push for that. Or they'll be like, there's just a ton of emotion behind that number and they make it mean something about who they are. If they hit it, they're great. If they don't hit it, they failed. If they're behind, they panic. If they're ahead, they relax. And all of these reactions, by the way, can mess you up because, guys, one, it's a number. It's not just a number, right? It's not even just a sales goal. It's a pressure test, right? It tests everything. And you can replace 50 grand with whatever number you think is big in your head, by the way. Don't just use 50 grand as that number, but any number that you think in your head that's huge. It's a pressure test. It tests your preparation. It's going to test your discipline. It's going to test your emotional control. It's going to test your relationship with rejection. It's going to test your ability to stay focused when you're tired. It tests your standards when no one's freaking watching. And it tests whether your schedule is actually built for the goal you said you wanted. And it'll test whether you keep moving when you're behind. But probably most importantly, it's going to test whether the version of you who set the goal is the same version of you who shows up when the goal starts getting uncomfortable. because that's where most pushes will fall apart. Not on day one, not when everything's exciting, right? When the group chat's going off and it's just, you just have that SC2 air about you or CSP air about you. Honestly, they fall apart when the emotional high wears off and you're actually left doing the actual work. So that's why I want to be really clear with you guys. It doesn't expose whether you're talented. And I'm going to be the first one to say that I don't consider myself the most talented rep, but I do consider myself the one that's the most disciplined and the most committed, right? Out of most people, right? Talent might help you get started, but a personality might help you create that momentum. And a good names list might help you get those early wins. But at some point during a real push, all that's going to get tested, right? All that will, right? When it starts to fall apart. So how are you under that pressure? Because that moment where things are not going the way you wanted, you have to decide whether you're still going to be the person who said they were going to do this, right? Because if 50K was just a number or whatever number you picked that you were interested in, you're going to adjust that goal. But if it's a decision and it's a pressure test, you will adjust your behavior. And that's the difference, right? That's the difference. And that's the biggest mistake that I see people make whenever they first go after a number. So in fact, in the chat, guys, real quick, to you, what is a big push? Like not the number you put, obviously, because you've already done that. But what is a big push for you? Like when you look at a number, you're like, dude, that's a big push, right? That's a hard push. Just put in the chat here real quick. I'd love to see people's heads are at. All right. So you got John Bryan saying 50K, 15K. Dante says 100K, 50, 20, 15, 50, 100, 40K plus. Great. Awesome. These are all great numbers. 30K, 103,576. Really, really specific, Eli. Okay. 30K plus. Awesome. And what's fascinating, guys, I love that you guys can see this. It's like everyone has a different definition of what a big push is. Right? Isn't that? I find that fascinating. Right. I guarantee you, if Rob Robinchuk was on this call, he'd probably put like, oh, 500K is a big push for me. Right. Everyone has different perceptions. Everyone has different starting points. So whatever number you guys wrote down, the question that I want you to write down and ask yourself either now or later, but what does that number require from you? Because if you ask yourself, can I do this? Your brain immediately will start searching for evidence from your past. It'll start saying things like, well, I've never done this before. My biggest push was only this much. I don't know if I've got enough names. I don't know if I'm that good yet, right? Whatever. But when you ask yourself, what would blank require from you? You start thinking like a builder. You start thinking about the actual pieces, the names, the calls, the appointments, like everything, all the layers that you need, the schedule, the standards, the person you have to become. And it moves you out of this fear place and into ownership, right? And into ownership. So I want you guys to write this down. Whatever number you wrote down, 100 grand, 50 grand, whatever that big number is, put that number down and write, it's not asking me if I'm ready. It's asking me what I'm willing to build. It's not asking me if I'm ready. This number is asking me what I'm willing to build. Because no one is ever freaking ready for their next level. That's why it's called the next level. Because if you were already fully ready, it's not going to stretch you. And if it doesn't stretch you, it's probably not big enough to change you. So when we talk about vision building today, we're not just talking about imagining this number and saying, oh, I can't wait to go after this. It's about building that internal foundation that can handle the pressure of whatever number you wrote down. Because the plan that we build in part 2, right, when we actually build out your schedule, we build out the layers and where all the math is going to freaking come from, that will only be as strong as the person carrying it. And the execution system that we build in part 3 will only matter if you've already decided that you're not going to abandon yourself the moment it gets hard. So here's the reframe. 50K push or whatever push, have the big number that you put. That push is not just a number, it's a mirror, right? It's a mirror. It shows you your habits. It's just going to show you your excuses. It shows you your preparation. It's going to show you everything. It's going to literally reflect a mirror to you. And that's not a bad thing. That's a gift of going after a big goal. Every time I went after a big push, the 100K push, the 75 grand mark, 85 grand mark, it held up a mirror to my face of what what was reflected back to me. See, a small goal will let you say the same, but a big goal forces the truth to the surface. So if you're serious about whatever number you put down as a big goal, ask, who do you have to become so that this number becomes a result of how I operate? So that's what we're really building today. So before we move into the first mental shift that I want you guys to write down, I'm going to have you guys answer 2 questions, and we're going to keep it short and sweet just so we can move quickly. 2 questions. Be honest with yourself, and I want you guys to write this down and put in the chat, right? Number 1, if you attempted, and it doesn't have to be 50K, by the way, you can put whatever number you wrote down. But if you attempted a 50K push right now, the first thing that would probably break is what? Is it your schedule? Is it your discipline? Is it your names list? Is it your follow-up, confidence, phone time, your average order, your consistency, or maybe your emotional control? If you attempted a $50,000 push or whatever big number push, if you've already done that before, the first thing that would break is what? And I want to see the chat here. What would you guys put there? Okay, we'll give you guys 60 seconds. All right, schedule, consistency, your discipline, average order, great. Physical, keeping pace with a larger number. Interesting on that one, Dante. Be good to explore that. Discipline. Okay, awesome. So it brings me to the second question. So the part of you that would need to grow the most to handle that number is what? Right. The part of you that would need to grow the most to handle that is what? Making the decision to be willing to work a 40K schedule. Confidence, right? Names list, perfect. Confidence, discipline. Sweet. Schedule, perfect. Love this, guys. Thank you for the response back. Now, when you guys write these answers down, don't be writing it down and then after the end of this call, be like, okay, cool, we're good. Right? Reflect on what you wrote down because that's your starting point. Right? That is your starting point before we can really dive in. So which brings me to the first mental shift. Decide before you feel ready. Right? Decide before you feel ready. So this is where most people will get stuck before they even begin. All right. They'll wait to feel ready. Right. They'll wait to feel confident or have that perfect plan in place, or they have that event that they wanted that's going to magically give them the CPO they need to hit their goal. But guys, big results don't work that way. So the first shift you need to have if you're seriously attempting going after a large push goal is you have to decide before you even feel ready. Right? Because if you wait until you feel ready, you're never going to freaking start. And even if you do start, you're going to start late. You'll start once, push is already underway, when it's a week before SC2, when you start to feel that pressure. And by then you're not building from power, you're building from panic. And it's not the same thing. Right? It's not created by waiting until you're ready. It's created when you make that decision and letting the actions, I'm going to say that again, letting the actions build the belief. Because a lot of people have that backwards. They think, oh, I have to believe before anything else. And then they think they need to feel confident before they can commit. And then you got to feel confident before you can do this. And they think they need to know exactly how it's going to happen before they even decide. But that's not how confidence is built, guys, because you've never freaking done it. When I was going after 100 grand, my biggest push at the time was 40 grand, right? 40 grand. And that was a squeaker to get by. So I didn't feel ready. I didn't even have a plan in place to go after 100 grand. It was just a coaching call with Josh Mueller where I sat down and he asked me the freaking question, like I asked you guys, is what would it look like to go after 100 grand? What would it look like to be the first person in Rising Sun history to sell 100 grand for SC2? And that was the moment I was like, I'm going after this. Like, I don't know how long it's going to take, but I'm going to go after it. Because confidence, guys, it's not something you wait for. Confidence is evidence. And you build it by making the calls, by stacking appointments, by getting coached, by being on this freaking call, by having uncomfortable conversations with yourself. You build it by showing up on days where you didn't feel like showing up, right? By putting aside whatever it is right now that might be distracting you and saying, I'm going to be locked in and focus. Right? And you build it by doing the thing you said you were going to do even after the feeling disappeared. And that's why the decision always has to come first, because the decision gives you actions direction before your emotions can catch up. Because if you only move when you're ready or feel ready, your push is going to be controlled by your mood, and your mood will constantly freaking change. Constantly. Schedule's going to get messy. People are going to cancel. Orders are going to fall through. Right. And you're going to have days where you feel, by the way, absolutely unstoppable. And then you're going to have those days where you're like, I have no idea what the freak I'm doing. And that's totally normal. But if your commitment and your actions will depend on your mood, then your standard is going to change every day. And you can't build that push you wrote down as a large number on a moving standard. So when I say decide before you feel ready, I don't mean, by the way, pretend you're not nervous, right? I don't mean fake the confidence. I don't mean act like doubts aren't there, because doubts will definitely be going to be there. Doubts showed up all the time until I hit it. The fear may be there, the uncertainty may be there, but none of those get to be in charge. So I'll say that again. None of those get to be in charge. That's the shift. You don't need to feel fearless. You need to stop letting fear make the final decision. And by the way, guys, it took me 3 years to sell $100,000. 3 years, 3 summers, right? It took me that amount of attempts and preparation and trying again and again. If I would have given up after the first one, imagine that. Right. And it'll show, when I say it shows you that mirror, I mean, it's like you have to confront your skill set. You have to admit maybe habits that aren't there what they need to be, maybe some beliefs. You have to admit that you might need help. You might have to be seen trying. And for a lot of people, that's probably the real fear. It's just not falling apart, but it's just being seen trying and still possibly coming up short. And I think if you guys were there for my talk and Gem, I mentioned that after the second time I went for 100 grand and only sold 84, I got that text that said, "Hey, better luck next time." Uh, and it was a little embarrassing, and I was like, I can't believe I went after this again and I failed. But I didn't let that rule me, right? Because again, my question was never, can I do this? It's always, what does this look like? Right? That's the decision that you need to make, is what does this look like? And this is a way better place to operate from, because this creates what we, instead of hesitation, it's going to create movement, right? And movement is what builds that belief, not thinking about it, not waiting, not trying to hype yourself up. It's movement, right? That's why it's so important. You stop asking, like, is this even possible? You start asking, all right, who do I need to call? What needs to be in my calendar? What's the next thing I have to do? And that's how leaders decide and move forward with it. It turns the goal from a dream into a problem to actually solve. And I mean that in the best way, because 50K or whatever number you wrote down, it's less about the emotion. It's more about the construction, because you're building something and you don't need to feel ready every single day. You just need to keep showing up. So if you're sitting here, by the way, waiting for some magical moment within this talk where you suddenly feel ready to go after 50K plus or whatever number you put, I'm going to challenge you. That moment's probably not going to come, at least not before you start. See, the readiness is, again, going to come right when you begin, right? When you begin. The belief comes after you take action, and the confidence comes after you stack the evidence. And then that identity will come after you repeatedly keep promises to yourself. So the question is not, do I feel ready for 50K? The question is, am I willing to decide before I feel ready, and then build a version of myself who can carry that decision? Am I willing to decide before I feel ready, and then build the version of myself who can carry that decision? Because that's where this actually starts. It starts when you decide. So a couple exercises for you. So again, to get some chats going. I want you guys to write this down. Again, don't write the version that just sounds good. I want you to actually write the real answer. The reason I haven't fully committed, the key word there is fully. Fully meaning every single day from dusk till dawn, right? Minus your rest days, of going after a big push. The reason I have not fully committed to a bigger push before is blank, right? And it can be, I didn't believe I could. I didn't want to fail publicly. I didn't want to work that hard. I was afraid of being disappointed. I was waiting to feel ready. Whatever the reason may be, it can be more than that. But that's just a couple of examples here for you that you can write down. But what is that? Okay, so Dante says intentions to bigger pushes and the benefits of it. I didn't think it was possible, right? The schedule and the discipline. Okay, right. What else, guys? Got 3 so far. Belief in myself. The reason I've only committed to bigger push before is laziness and lack of confidence. Great. Laziness, by the way, it's just a trait. That's all it is. Never not bad nor good. It's just a trait. Didn't think possible. Schedule's my biggest hurdle. Right. Okay. So bringing to the second one. If I made a decision before I felt ready, the first action I would take is blank. Right? What's the first action? The number one thing. Is it building your names list? Is it schedule coaching? Is it planning out my calendar? Is it telling my family, my relationship, what I'm kind of going for? Is it building my names list to the point where it's just this massive list, or whatever it is, right? You pick. All right, this is your answers, not mine. Because the first answer, by the way, is going to show you what you've been holding back. But the second answer is going to show you what that next move is. And the decision becomes real when it creates action. So what was the answer number 2? Make a plan starting my names list. Great. Plan my push out day by day. Awesome. Planning. Well, talking to friends and family, so I'm not going to be distracted. That's a big one. But I said before, if I were to the first action I would take is building up my names list and getting my plan together. Fantastic, Kaden. Great. Sweet, guys. This is awesome. So I'm glad you were writing some of this stuff down. Fix my schedule and talk to my family and fully commit. Awesome. Right. And again, the reason why, by the way, guys, like I didn't spend so much time on like, oh, this is why you should push, is because if you're on this call, you know why you should push, right? It's creating limits that you never thought possible. Right. But I want to go quickly into these exercises so you can start reflecting on yourself of why you've never done it before and what that first step is to make it happen. So now once you make that decision, the next question is pretty obvious. Why? Why? Because a decision with no real why behind it usually does not survive pressure. It just doesn't. It might survive the first good day, it might survive like that first easy win, but it's never going to survive that hard middle of the push. So in this next shift, we're going to talk about finding your real why. And I know you guys have heard this so much before, and you're probably thinking, Alan, I heard this since day one of freaking training, right? And I just can't, it's hard to explain why, how important this is and how every single person in this room probably still is finding their real why. Because it took me 7.5 years to find out the real reason why I was even working in Cutco in the first place. Right? And people will give surface level whys, right? You guys have heard it before if you were managers or back in the day. Oh, I want to hit my goal so I can win a scholarship. Or I want to make this amount of money so I can pay off this debt. Or I want to save for a house. And hey, nothing wrong with those things, but it's usually the first layer. And most of the time it's incomplete. Because the first layer just doesn't have enough emotional weight to carry you through the hard days. Because when you're exhausted, when people are canceling on you left and right, when someone falls asleep with you in the middle of a demo, which has happened to me before, when your schedule's packed, when you haven't, done anything fun in the last 10, 15, maybe 20 days, you haven't just sat down with yourself and just chilled, or you're behind pace, or you're frustrated, or you're starting to doubt yourself, that surface level why is not strong enough. I want to make money is not going to get you back on the phone. I want to hit my goal or want to win this scholarship is not going to make you follow up again. Or even the people that say, I just want to prove to myself that I can do it. It's not always going to show up with the energy after a bad day. You need something deeper than that. You need the why underneath the why underneath the why. Because the real why, guys, it's usually not just about money, right? It's about what that money represents. It's not about the goal. It's about who you're becoming in the process after the goal, right? It's not even about recognition, which, by the way, I'm going to be the first one to admit, the longest time, my why was for recognition. Like when I was first pushing for $100,000, when I first decided I'm going to go after this, I thought I knew my why. It's like, oh yeah, I want to win. I want to break through and I want to be at Cutco great. I literally had written that down like multiple times in my journal and stuff. Is like, I'm going to be a Cutco great. I'm going to be, one of the top reps. And I really thought that was my real why. But in reality, it was a surface level why. It was a why that was derived through my past of wanting validation and wanting to feel love and part of the group. Right? It stems from my, kid era growing up, and then just kind of carried with me. And in Cutco, man, I'm put on blast, or I'm recognized, I'm on stage. So it's fueling that. And so now I'm thinking, oh man, if I go after 100 grand, then that'll really cement it. Then I'll really be accepted. And it can only carry you so far. and I reached that breaking point. That's why I wasn't breaking that threshold of 100 grand, because I realized subconsciously that if I break that 100 grand, I'm like, oh man, I have to go after something even bigger than that. And that's even more scary. So after a lot of reflection and a lot of journaling and self-thought, I was able to find my new why. And I'm going over this briefly. Like, if you guys want to hear my actual story, it's in the gem talk. But what I found was I wanted to create a life for my family where I can be fully present with them and still create the lifestyle that I desire and design for them. And to do that, I have to create the income needed over these next 10 years to provide that. I mean, and how much of a blessing is it, by the way, that you guys can just go out there and if you wanted to, you can create this amount of income in 3 weeks, right? The fact that I was able to go out and sell 142 grand and create $75,000 in income in 3 weeks was eye-opening and fascinating. And I'm so grateful to be in that position. And it was hard, but I had to break through that why to be able to embrace it and fully go after it. And my new why, my new like reasoning, like basically the statement that I kind of held to myself was, it doesn't matter if I'm never recognized ever again, as long as I can provide that life for my family and be fully present with them. And that gave me so much freedom to really go after it. But it took me a long time to figure that out, because for a long time I was close. I had those moments, but there was always this gap, and that gap is what bothered me. Right. But in those moments, by the way, when push gets hard, when you're feeling behind, when there's moments that you just don't want to keep going, in those moments, the reason has to be stronger than the feeling. Right? Has to be stronger than the feeling. And that's what your real why does. It gives you the real reason to keep showing up. Right. And by the way, your real why does not always have to sound inspirational either. Some people think that they have to like, oh, this has to sound really good if I say this out loud. It doesn't. It has to be yours. It has to be real to you. Right. It can even be like, hey, I'm tired of my own excuses, or I'm tired of watching other people do things that I'm capable of doing too if I actually work for it. Right. The polished answer doesn't usually move you. It's the honest answer that does. So whatever your why is, ask yourself why to that why, and then ask it again and again and again and again. Right. And once you have this, you can craft whatever it is you need to craft to really anchor yourself in. So with this why, let's move on to here, the exercise. All right. So part of your exercise right now is we're going to start with your first why. And part of the assignment after this, homework assignment, I guess you could say, but this is something if you want to take with you after this call, is to kind of keep fleshing this out. We're going to kind of scratch maybe the surface of this with these questions here, but I want to make sure that we can, take this and run with it after this call ends, because we're not going to get through it, obviously, in the next 20 minutes. So number one, whatever push you're going after, if it's, we're in the middle of a CSP push, so hopefully no one here is actually using this call to help their CSP push, but whether it's SC1 or SC2, this push matters to me because blank, and write the first answer that comes to your mind, right? Write it, whatever it is. Don't try to like overthink it. This first question is supposed to be just like whatever the first answer comes to your mind. Selling is what makes me happy. Thank you, Joshua, for being the first one. Personal development. Cool. I want to prove to myself that I can. Great. Awesome, Skylar. What else? Again, don't overthink this. This is supposed to be just instinct. Hey, this push matters to me. Like, why are you freaking here? I guess is a better question. It's like, why are you on this call? This push matters to me because I want to pay my rent in advance. Fantastic. I want to hit something, I'm assuming big and not bug. There you go. Want to hit something big. Savings, next CSP milestone, family, set me up for the future. Great. Next question. Whatever you guys are writing down. The deeper reason behind that is what? Right? The deeper reason behind that is what? If the answer was to set me up for the future, cool. Get more specific on that. I'm just using that as an example because it's the first one I saw. Right? What's the deeper reason behind that? Like, why is that important to you? Right? So for Jordan said school, cool. Why is, I'm assuming, paying off school? Why is paying off school important to you? Right? Write that down. Zach says financial freedom. John says financial stability. financial freedom, takes a slice out of my 2026 year. Great. So Dante's achievement focus, cool. Love you, Don. When I do what I love, I show up the right way and it impacts the people. I hate losing. Interesting. All right. So what you want to do after this, by the way, guys, when you write down your deeper reason, is take whatever you wrote down after this call, sit with it, and ask you, what about this is also important? Cheyenne says financial freedom is same for my future family. Great. Why is that important? As an example, we have to answer right now, but as an example, reflect on that. If you wrote that, you wrote down, hey, consistency and dedication. Cool. Why is that important to you? And that's what I mean, guys, about just kind of diving into those layers more and more and more. Right? Because your first answer is probably the obvious reason. Your second answer is closer, not right away, but closer to the real reason. Now, the last question is if I'm being brutally honest, the part of this goal that scares me the most is what? The part of this goal that scares me the most is what? Write this down. Failure. Okay. The work. Failing through on my goal, not doing everything that I could have to achieve it, putting the goal out there and just falling short of it. Your third answer, guys, shows you what your why has to be strong enough to overcome. Why it has to be strong enough to overcome. All right. So after this call, I'm going to challenge you to really, really sit with that. Bring me to the third shift. All right. Third shift. Sorry for moving around here along here quickly. I want to make sure we get through everything. Shift number 3. Identity before activity. Identity before activity. So once you have your why, we got to talk about identity, because your why is going to give your push meaning, but your identity determines whether you actually live up to it. So before I dive into this, I want to explain what I mean by identity, but I kind of want to hear from you guys. Like, what do you guys think I mean by identity? It kind of gives away a little bit here with what I'm talking about, but just curious, like, what is your guys' definition or what you think I mean when I say identity? Who I am, be who you plan to be, who we say we are. Yep, exactly. All right. Who do I have to be to do this? Yep, you guys are spot on. So when I say identity, I'm not talking about personality, your interests, music, whatever, what I like, any of that stuff. I mean the internal question of who am I? But more specifically in this contest is who do I believe I am when pressure shows up? Who do I believe I am when pressure shows up? Because that is what's going to matter in this push period. Because everyone on this freaking call can say they're committed, because there's no pressure or anything. You're on a Zoom call and you say, I want to sell 50 grand plus in sales. I'm inspired. I'm going after it. Anyone can say, I'm going to make the call. I'm going to follow up. I'm going to get coached. I'm going to go all in. But your real identity is going to show up when that pressure hits, when you're tired, when the demo cancels, order falls through, right? When you're behind pace, when you went after it for a second time and fell short by 100 grand and you get a text from one of your peers saying, hey, better luck next time, right? That's when the identity is going to show. And when your emotions start giving you permission to lower the standard, that's when you find out who you actually believe you are. So here's a simple way to think about identity. Identity is a story you believe about yourself so deeply, right, that you start acting like it without even realizing it. As an example, if you believe I'm not good on the phone, you're probably going to avoid phone time. If you believe I can't close business gift orders, I just don't have the customers, then yeah, you're probably going to hesitate when it comes time to pitch a business gift. If you believe, hey, I'm someone who always likes to start out strong, but then I kind of fade out, and I can't keep up with my goal, you're probably going to expect yourself to fade. So that's the identity. It's not just what you say, it's what you've repeatedly proven to yourself. And Tony Robbins actually talks about this and uses the analogy of a thermostat. See, a thermostat has a set temperature, right? Everybody knows how it works. If the room gets too hot or too cold, the system kicks in and brings the room back to where it's set. See, your identity works the exact same way. You have this internal setting of what you feel is normal to you. There's a level of activity that feels normal to you. There's a level of discipline that feels normal to you. There's a level of success that feels normal to you. There's a level of failure, right? As well, too, that kind of maybe feels normal to you, right? There's a level of discomfort that feels normal. So when you try going way above the internal setting, part of you is going to try to pull yourself back. And this is actually like hardwired into our brains to actually avoid pain. Like biologically, we are avoiding pain at all times, right? So we're like seeking, like, all right, I need to be comfortable, I need to be comfortable, right? So we're actually like, our brains aren't designed for that, right? And you have to be aware of that. So when you try going way above that internal setting, part of you is going to pull yourself back to what feels familiar. And that's why a lot of reps, by the way, have a good few days, but they disappear. Or they start strong for push, like I did. My last one before the 145 grand one, I was at like 40 grand in like 6 days. And I was like, dude, I'm on pace. But that thermostat wasn't there. I wasn't in that headspace of like, I am a 100K pusher. And so I was like, we're going to dial it back down. And the opposite's also true, by the way, right? Sometimes if we fall too below, if we're like, whoa, like, I'm not, that's not me. I need to pick it back up. We'll ramp it back up. And that's why so many CSPs, guys, they go through these like ebbs and flows. So many average CSPs will be like, they'll sell a lot and they'll go back down, but then they're like, oh, I'm going to pick it back up again. And they'll go through this like weird cycle. Right. So if you guys see yourself as someone who, like identifies of any one of those areas, right? Our goal is to raise our thermostat to higher, especially when we're going after this big push, right? And that's the power of raising your identity. It doesn't just pull you up. It stops letting the old standard or the old you feel normal, right? See, most reps, they don't have an activity problem. They have a normal problem where their normal is too low for the goal that they say that they want, right? So most reps don't have an activity problem. They have a normal problem where it's too low for the goal they say they want. So when we talk about identity before activity, this is what I mean by that. We have to talk about the person that's going to actually execute that activity. Because if you don't raise that internal setting, that activity is not going to last. And you might get that burst, you might have a couple great days, but unless we set it intentionally, we're not going to get there. And this is where a lot of people get stuck. They want that breakthrough. So that's the shift. Identity before activity. Identity before activity. Right? Every goal has an identity attached to it. A 10K push has a specific identity. A 20K push has an identity. That number you first wrote down of like, this was my biggest push, that number has an identity. A 100K push has an identity. So the question is not just, hey, what number do I want, right? The question I want you guys to write down is, who is the kind of person that produces that number, right? Who is the kind of person that produces that number? Let me just get ahead there. And I actually want you guys to write that down. You don't need to answer it yet, but I want you to write down who is the kind of person who produces that bigger number that you're going after. What are their thoughts? What are their plans? How do they handle rejection? How do they follow up? What's their standards, their belief, right? How do they respond when they fall behind? How do they respond when they had a cancellation? Right? See, a lot of people want the result, but they don't want the identity. They want the 50K number, they want the big push number, but they're still living the whatever lifestyle they have at their original push number. And it just doesn't work. You can't accidentally sell your way there. You can't keep voting for your old identity every day and then be surprised when your old results show up. Right? Because your actions, everything you do between now and when push begins are votes. Every phone call you make is a vote. Being on this call is a vote. Every coaching call you're a part of. Every time you honor your calendar, that's a vote. And the opposite's also true. Every time you avoid the work, every time you say, hey, I'll do it later, every time you let your mood decide your standard, every time you lower your goal because you're scared you're not going to hit it, that's a vote. And eventually, those votes will become your identity. And that's why this matters. Right? It's not about what you say about yourself. It's about the repeated actions that prove who you are. So if you say you want to go after a big push, great. Your calendar better show otherwise. Your identity better show otherwise. All right? It might sound harsh, but it's actually really freeing because it means you don't have to actually magically feel like a 50K rep. You can literally act like one consistently enough, and then you're going to become one. And this is what I wrote down for myself, guys, is I wrote down, what is the identity of a $100,000 pusher? This is obviously 4 years, 3 years ago. And I wrote down, if you guys want to write this down, the beliefs, the skill sets, and the habits. Beliefs, skill sets, habits. And I wrote down as much as I could of like, okay, this is what the belief of a 100K pusher is. This is the habit of a 100K pusher. This is the skill set I need to have as a 100K pusher. Right. And that gave me a target. And I found that 95% of those things I can do today. I was like, oh, and that kind of clicked for me. Right. And I started doing those things. And it took me a while. It took me 3 years, but I got there. Right. I got there. So think of it like this way, guys. If whatever number you wrote down, 100 grand, 50 grand, whatever that big number you wrote down is, if that version of you walked into your life right now and watched how you operated day to day for a week, what do you think they would change? Would they change your morning routine? Would they change your calendar? Would they change your environment? Would they change how fast you follow up with people? Right? Who you're around, your mentality? I mean, what would they change? And guys, it's not about shaming you or anything like that. It's just about honesty and being real with yourself. Because if you can see that gap, you can close the gap. But if you keep pretending there is no gap, you're going to keep repeating the same patterns. And that's the biggest differences between average reps and high level reps. Average reps, they personalize the gap. They see the gap and they're like, I'm not good enough. But high level reps, they study that gap and they say, cool, I know what I need to build to get there. Right? I know what I need to build to get there because they own their mistakes. At like 50K push reps or whatever big number you put, they own their mistakes, they own their calendar, they own their skill set, they own everything. Not because everything is their fault, but because everything is their responsibility. And that is a Tony Robbins quote that I absolutely love. Not everything is your fault, but everything is your responsibility. So take ownership in that, right? It's such a key line, and it's the identity that I want you guys to embody, right? And a great line that I also heard, I forgot from where, but that number you guys wrote down for your first push, right? You're like your biggest push ever. What got you there is going to keep you there. What got you there will keep you there. So the same habits, beliefs, standards that got to your current level will keep recreating that current level. So if you're serious about this, again, you're not asking, what do I need to do? It's who do I need to become? So let's work on these 3 questions that I want you guys to write down here and answer back to me as we go into our last section. I'll be a little quick on this, so it'll go over time. Number 1, the version of me who can push $50,000 or fill in the blank or whatever number you want. Version of me who can push blank is someone who does what they said would do even when they don't feel like it, follows up immediately instead of waiting, right? Ask for help before they're drowning or, shutting away. Takes full ownership of the results, right? Whatever comes to mind, guys. So the version of me who can push blank, whatever big number you wrote, is someone who stays true to his word, commits, is consistent, and mindful of the time. Yeah. Constantly takes action. Great. Great. Second question, the old version of me I need to stop bringing into this push is the version who what? Is a version who what? Is it someone that waits until I feel pressure to start moving? Is it someone that lets his mood or her mood decide the activity? So it makes excuses, right? Is it using fear as a reason to lower the goal? What's the old version of you need to leave behind? Who is that person? And name it, right? Gets caught in his own hand, emotionally attached only to the result. Yeah. Right. And then the last one identity level standard I'm committing to is what? What is some a version of yourself that you're going to be, that you're committing to? Right? Someone that you get that asks for help before they feel behind, does the next action, it just makes decisions, it makes the phone calls, doesn't care about like this, puts in the time, the work. What is that? What is the standard, the identity level standard you're committing to for this push period? Because the first answer shows you who you're becoming. The second answer shows you who you're leaving behind. And this third answer is going to give that new identity a standard. Okay. Plan with the end in mind. Great. Thank you, Zach. Old version I need to leave behind is the one who walks away the moment things get too hard. That's a big one. Okay. We're gonna move on for time's sake, guys. But if you're still working on it, obviously keep working on it. Last shift, release the limits, release your limitations, right? On what you think is possible. So once we start talking about the new version of yourself, the next thing that's going to show up is resistance, right? David Goggins actually talks about in this book, Can't Hurt Me, where he calls it the governor, which I don't know if anyone's ever read that book. Fantastic book, but it's true. See, your governor is going to start bringing up every reason why this might not work. You don't have enough names. You're not good enough yet. You never done this before. You're too busy. You're too good for this. You're not a push rep, right? I hear so many people say they're like, I'm just not a push rep. I'm a consistency rep. And then yet they don't do anything consistently throughout the whole year. There's only a few people that can actually say that I believe. So the next shift is this: release your limits, right? When I say release limits, I'm not saying pretend obstacles don't exist, because there are real obstacles, right? Your schedule might actually be busy. Your names list might actually need some work. Your skill set could actually need improvement, or your average order might not be where it needs to be. But there's a big difference between an obstacle and a limit. See, an obstacle is something you have to solve. A limit is something you've already accepted as final. And I'll say it again, an obstacle is something you get to solve. A limit is something you've already accepted as final. Hopefully, if you guys are okay with it, we can go over just a couple minutes, right? I promise you it's worth it. If you say my names list this week, that might be an obstacle. But if you say I can't push big enough because I don't have enough names, that's become a limit. You see where I'm going with this, right? A lot of reps are not being held back by reality. They're being held back by the meaning they've attached to that reality. Because when you believe something's an obstacle, you look for a solution. But when you believe something's a limit, you've already given yourself permission to not go for it. And some of you have been giving yourself permission to stop for a long time, not because you're lazy or because you don't care, but because you believed whatever the story is. And I'm here to challenge that, because your past results, whatever you sold in the past, that's not your ceiling. That's just evidence of who you've been and who you've operated and what you've built up to this point. That's it. It's not a life sentence. It's just feedback. And if you're willing to study the feedback instead of personalizing it and victimizing it, you can change the result. But if you keep treating your past as proof that you can't do more, you're just going to keep recreating the same result. And that's the problem with limits. They become self-fulfilling. If you believe you're not good on the phone, you're probably going to avoid the phone. If you believe you can't close big orders, you're going to recommend something smaller, right? So very, very close to identity, guys. They're very linked, right? They're very, very linked. And what's crazy is that some of those limits or those stories that you tell in your head, they're not even yours. They just came from like a bad campaign, a bad sales week, or one push period that you actually went for and maybe fell short. Maybe some came from someone who didn't believe in you. Maybe it came from a family member or a friend. See, but that moment, right, or that time is not an identity, right? It's not. It's just data. And data is useful if you use it correctly. It'd be like me if I went after 100 grand my first summer and I sold 75, and I'm like, oh, well, I guess I'm just not meant for it. You know, I maxed it out. I gave it my all. My whole schedule was maxed. It wasn't, even when working this hard, it's just not meant to be. I don't have the schedule for it. Like, no, that'd be like me turning my feedback into a ceiling. Instead, what I did is I studied it and I said, cool, what worked? What broke? Where do I not go? Right? What do I need to change so that I can hit this goal? And that's what serious reps do. They don't make failure as final, they make failure as feedback. Right? So we're saying, I refuse to confuse a challenge with a ceiling. I want you guys to write that down. I refuse to confuse a challenge with a ceiling. Because a lot of people do. They'll hit the friction, call it a wall, and then that's it. Right? That's it. So being behind pace, right? And this, by the way, this is how a serious pusher thinks. They don't worship the obstacle. They solve it. They don't make it mean I can't. They make it mean I've got work to do. And that's ownership. So I'm asking you guys right now, what is a story that you've been telling yourself that's the truth, that you feel like it's the truth? Right? What is a story? Because whatever it is, you need to name it. Not so you can beat yourself up a bit, so you can challenge it. Because most limits lose power when they get exposed. They grow in the dark, but they shrink when you name them, question them, and replace them with ownership. And that's what we're doing here. We're not ignoring reality. We're changing your relationship with reality. right? We're changing your relationship with reality. So when it gets hard, the question is going to be, what story are you going to choose? The old one or the one that actually matches where you say where you're going? Because that's what it means to release the limits. So this last section here, I want you guys to write this down and post in here. The limiting belief I've been obeying is what? The limiting belief I've been obeying is what? What's your limit that you're telling yourself? The story that you keep running through your head. It's like, I don't have enough names. I'm not good on the phone. I'm not a big order rep. I'm not good enough, right? I always fade after the first week. I think I saw Dante post that earlier. My past results prove I'm not there yet. Cool. All right. I'm too far behind, right? Names list, not good enough. Cool. And I fail again, right? And it can even be about, I've seen people have limiting beliefs about other people. Oh, I just don't have the customer base. Oh, I don't have the business gift orders that I do, right? And it's so funny that people, oh, I'm not a coordinator. I've heard that before. Oh, I don't get the shows that I want. Whatever your belief, if the belief you're telling is true, you're going to make it true. That brings me to the second question. The belief you need to operate. Yeah, I thought you liked that, Dante. The belief, the belief you need to operate from instead is what? What is the belief you need to operate from instead? Right? What do you need to change? I can become good enough. Great. Love that. Ooh, I want to give me chills. Right? What is the belief you need to operate from that you know is true? And again, you have to feel it's true. I love that because Josh didn't say, "Oh, I am good enough." Like it didn't go. My limiting beliefs, I'm not good enough. So therefore, my new belief is I am good enough. No, it's I can become good enough. That is a fantastic belief. All right. You have to believe this next belief that you're writing down. It has to be true for you. Has to be true. Boom. Love it. Okay. All right, bring to the last section here, guys. This will be kind of like a really quick one that we want to go through. This is the vision statement exercise. So this is very important. This is the foundation of what we were kind of building for. See, once you've made the decision that you want to go after it, you found the deeper why, you've identified who you're becoming, and you started releasing these limits that have been holding you back. We have to put all this into something you can actually carry with you, because when the push gets hard, you're not going to remember this workshop call. You're right. You're just not right. But you need a sentence. You need a language, something that reminds you of who you are, what you're building, and why you're not backing off. So that's what this little vision statement's about. We're going to craft it right now. Doesn't have to be perfect. I just want you guys to start. And then and part of the assignment after this is to refine it. So here's the format that I want you to use to start with. You can edit it as you want. If you want to expand upon it and make it a whole essay, you can. That's what I did for my push periods. I made it like a whole essay to read every single morning. Or you just need a sentence and that's it. I am becoming the person who blank, and you fill in the identity that you wrote down, because you fill in your why. During this push, I will, what's that standard that you're writing down? Even when resistance, meaning your limits, right? Even when the limits pop up, even when that I'm not good enough, comes in my brain, right? So I'm becoming the person who blank, because blank, which is your why. And then during this push, I will, and then what's the standards you're committed to doing, even when blank, right? What's the identity you're stepping into, who you're becoming, what's your why, why does this actually matter, right? What are you going to do when things get real? And in the final blank, what's that old story or resistance that's going to try to pull you back, right? What are you going to keep going even when blank? So for example, I'm becoming the kind of person who follows through even when it's hard, because I'm tired of living below my potential. During this push, I'm going to protect my calendar, make the calls I'm committed to, and ask for coaching, even when I'm tired, behind, or tempted to believe that I'm not good enough. Right? That's it. Identity, why, standard, resistance. Take a few minutes, write yours, at least start with it. Use what you wrote down today, use your why, and use the identity you're building to the limit you're releasing. And don't write something cute. Don't write something good for Instagram. Write something that's going to actually hit you when you read it on a hard day. Because that's what all of this is for. And this is such an important foundation for everything, because we can't build the house without this foundation. You need something that brings you back to this decision constantly. And as you guys are working on this, I'll wrap up here. I want to bring this back to where we started, right? Again, this first workshop, my goal was not to just hype you up, right? That's not it, which I hope you are, but that's not what the whole goal of this is. It's not even about getting you to pick a random number. It's just about getting honest and starting the conversation with yourself. Because before I give you the plan and the knowledge and all this skill set that I use throughout my push, we have to know what we're actually building, right? And like I said, you can't build a house if you don't have the foundation. So we talked about today making a real decision before you feel ready. We talked about actually finding your why. And I'm going to challenge you guys to really sit down with this why because it's so important. I can't begin to describe it. And you might brush it off. You might be like, who cares, Alan? This is a fucking why, right? Actually write down your why and really sit with yourself with that. Talked about the identity and who you actually need to become to produce, the big number that you're going after for this push. Talked about releasing limits, those old stories, those beliefs that have been kind of capping you. That's vision building, not just dreaming about the result, but building the internal foundation that can carry that result. So this next call, guys, part two of our call, and I think it's in 2 weeks. It's where we get practical. We're going to sit down. We're going to design your plan during the call. We're going to talk about what the math looks like, the schedule, what the layers are going to look like to build it, what the coaching, the foundations that I even personally did myself to make it a reality, right? But again, the truth is this workshop series will only be as useful as the honesty that you bring into it. So if you come into this next section or this next call 2 weeks from now, like the fake goal or something you randomly threw together, you're just going to build a random plan. But if you come in with a real decision, a real why, and a real willingness to look at the raw numbers, we can actually build something together. So before this next call, I'm going to ask you 2 things, right? 2 things, or I guess 4 things to bring. Number 1, what's your push goal, right? Whether it's SC2, SC1, doesn't matter. Number 2, your names list and schedule, like having your schedule done. It's easier when you can build off that foundation when you have like, hey, I'm working 16 days out of the week, or I'm working 18 days of the week, right? I have 2 days off. Here's my names list, right, of my push period that I'm doing. Because I already have mine built out for SC2, guys. Like that's already done. So that's what I want you guys to start building and creating and bringing to you. Your current average order. And if you can have your average order for each layer, even better. If you're able to pull that information, just as much detail as possible. And then the last thing is your biggest concern with the plan. Right? What's your biggest concern with the plan? Right. But more importantly, guys, obviously, remember to finish your vision statement as well. Don't just leave it as something you wrote down quickly on this call. Like clean it up, make it true, right? Talk to ChatGPT about it if you want. Who cares, right? I mean, I did that last year, honestly. And then when you have your final vision statement, print it out, put it where you can see it every single day. The phone, lock screen, bathroom mirror, whatever. I mean, I had it in my car, my bathroom mirror, and my book. Right. Don't forget about that. And again, the last thing I'll leave with you is this: stop asking if you can, start deciding who you have to become and what this looks like. Okay, that's all I got for you guys. Sorry, I went over a little bit. So appreciate it. Dante, if anything you want to add to this or anything like that, or if you want me to open up for Q&A, we can as well too, but hopefully this was good for you guys.
That'd be great. So let's give Alan a big round of applause for the absolute flames that just infused into our Zoom chat here for the last hour and some change. So I know he has some really great calls, some really great content lined up here on the next couple of training calls we're doing here. If you got some value out of this here today, out of respect for Alan, if you can throw any nuggets of any kind that you got into the chat box just to reinforce this content was relevant for you, that'd be great. For the training call here for next time, I put it into the chat box, but just so you guys have it here out here in front of you guys. It's actually in 3 weeks from now. It's May 26th from 2:30 p.m. to 3:30 p.m. Central. And Alan, correct me if I got this right, but basically call number 2 is going to be more into the prep with your schedule, your plan, the numbers, et cetera, et cetera. Like really
Yep.
putting that together, guys. And something that you said that I thought was really interesting was that you already have things ready to go for SE2 this year. I think you said at least it was your contact list that you're going to use or schedule or whatever it may be.
I have my team ready, my contact list, my schedule is already all done. Like the only thing is just connecting the dots and finalizing the details for it. So yeah.
Guys, I want to make sure you guys understand, like, regardless of whatever number you're trying to go for, I know Alan's putting up some big numbers. I know there's a few of us here who are CSPs that we're going to try and put up some big numbers. But just the intention of prep going into already having this thing ready, and SC2 for most of us doesn't even start for like 2.5 months, 2 months or so and some change. Um, if that just doesn't show any proof to the pudding of like how much prep you have to put into this, obviously important. Now, Alan, I won't take words out of your mouth, but I think it's safe to say that like what we don't want to do is just get this good feeling from this call and then basically spend the next 2 months just feeling good, but then just starting cold into SC2. I feel like we should probably do some stuff leading up to that, not just going into the push cold. Is that safe to say?
Correct. And that's, by the way, guys, that's why we have these push calls as early as I possibly could. If I could have had this in April, I would have, but I was getting married. So
How
that's why
dare
it's in there.
How dare you, Alan? So, and by the way, this is good we're doing this time of year because last year, once all the 100Ks kind of went out there into everywhere, I captured a lot of that content and put it in front of our CSPs and stuff, and people were like, "Oh, this is great. I wish I would have had this going into the summer." So that's why we're doing it this year here, and we're guinea pigging this program here for our two programs, and for you guys that are from outside our programs, we're glad to have you guys. If you have time still, Alan, I would love to have some Q&A. I think that's something that
Go for it.
definitely love to jump into. I'll go ahead and open up the floodgates here for this. I'm going to keep the recording going here for all this to capture the good things. So if you have a question, if you want to go ahead and either like raise your hand or throw in the chat you have a question or anything along those lines, that would be great. And then I'll pull you to the front here so that way you can ask your question.
Rob. Rob, check the important dates on the Rising Sun Events team website. You can get those SC1 and SC2 dates.
That works. All right, guys. Do we have any questions for Mr. Allen? Anything they'd be curious about while we have his time?
What was the one or two things that progressed you again from your 75/84 to 140? Because I know
Mhm.
you were shooting for 100 and then you hit it and you went, oh crap, now I can just float on by and keep going.
Um, so biggest things, Rob, was honest. Like people are always, I don't know, like I think I get mixed reactions whenever I say the answer to this, but because I think people are always looking for what's the one line you were saying that increased your average order? What's the skill set you did? Like honestly, like those are important, but truly it was just figuring out like, oh, I don't need to work for others. I need to work for myself. And it's not a sexy answer. It's not a magic answer. It just is. I got really self-reflective on myself these last couple of years and figured out why I was working and what the reason behind that was. And some people are don't like that or anything like that, but for me it's so important. That's why like I this is such an integral part of the workshop of getting really clear on all these different things and your vision and what you're building, because you can't build it without that. And so literally when I showed up for my 100K push the third year after going through that experience, it wasn't a challenge. It was very weird. It's hard to describe it, but basically it's like I already knew that it was going to happen. I could feel it in my body. Like it's like okay, this is the year. Everything lines. This is the year that I do it. And I had like the first 3 days of the push, I sold 40 grand. It's like cool. Yeah, this is the year. So it was a culmination of building towards that and becoming this is the key line, becoming the person that I know deserves the 100 grand. It's like, hey, I've done the work to attract this into my life. And now I just need to show up and execute. Right. That was really the biggest needle movers, Rob, I would say. So and don't worry, guys, like the third call, I'm going to be diving into my service call approach that I think really helped increase my average order and all that stuff. So like I have that plan in prep, but that's going to be, last because that's not the most important thing to cover.
I have a question for you, Alan.
Yeah.
So, as you know, obviously there's been a few CSPs that have hit that 100K barrier now, for the push week. And I asked a couple of these guys, and one of them said something in particular that, let me know if you kind of agree with this a little bit. Is he was like, all these years, it's like, it's, my manager tells me to go sell for the conference, go get the trophy, go do the things, but it's like, dude, I've been doing this for over 10 years. Like, I don't really care about the trophy. I got all the trophies already. Like, what's my purpose of doing this? And he was like, it's my slowest time of the year. It's my slowest time of the year. And if I can sell 100 grand over a 3-ish week window and sharpen my skill set for the fall, which is the best time of the year typically for most event programs, um, that's why they did it. And their push weeks have kind of like changed sporadically over the last couple of years since going really hard that first time. It's a long question. What I'm trying to say is that do you have anything like that kind of did you have those kinds of thoughts too of like I know in your division that it's not a super strong time of the year when it comes to events and it's very easy to pull your foot off the gas and just kind of sell 400 grand for the year, 350 grand for the year, whatever. So is there like a deeper, did you have any thoughts like that as to why I would just want to do 100 grand plus? And then like why are you trying to do it again?
Yeah. I think that's a part of it. I wouldn't say it's the main driver, main reason, because again, that's if that was the only reason, it wouldn't be strong enough to actually go after those big numbers. It might carry me into having, 40K pushes, right? Stuff like that. But I knew alone, like that reason alone wasn't going to get me to the next level of 100 grand. Like it was part of it, but not the whole reason. It's a great benefit is the best way to put it. That is, of course, a great freaking benefit. Like, why would I not want to create almost my biggest campaign aside from the spring and the fall, which is obviously when events are ramped up and all that stuff. Like that's a no-brainer, but it will only get you so far. It might get you past that first threshold of maybe 40 grand, 50 grand, but in my opinion, I don't think it'll get you to that next level. There is a deeper reason or why you would want to work even extra harder to go sell 100 grand or 150 or whatever the big number is that are people in people's heads. It's the same analogy that I use for people who are selling 500, 600 grand consistently for the year. To make that jump to 1 million, it requires a lot more. Not just your schedule, not just hey, I'm working every single week because why not? It's the slowest time of the year. It's like, hey, there's something else that's pushing you to that next level. So same thing with the push period. So I agree, but I don't think it's the whole reason, in my opinion.
Okay, that's fair.
Cool. I think Cameron had a question. Cameron, what's up?
Okay, so you was having a hard time with one of the questions about what the things that held me back from going after big pushes or being fully committed. And I'm wondering if you can help me like I better ask this as coming from someone who has after bigger pushes but then failed. How can I guess better ask that or get better context to it?
Mhm.
To better get out of it. Does that make
Okay.
sense?
If just so I understand what you're asking, are you asking, hey, how do I ask the question of what do I need to do differently to have this bigger push? Or are you asking about the limiting belief specifically, Cameron?
I think that's the question you asked. With one of them was, hey, like what got you in the way of, or what's the reason you never fully committed towards a big goal or a big push? The way I receive it is yeah, been going. I guess how can you ask that can you get more clarity to that question
For
of what
sure.
you're trying to get out
So
of
when
it?
I asked that question, it wasn't a question of like, oh well, hey, I've committed before. Like I feel like I've committed before. It's more of the question of like, hey, analyze within your own push journey, even if you have said, I want to go after a 50K push, or I think Dante last year, I think you said you were going after 100 grand, right? Or what were you going after last year? Yeah, I remember last year you said you were going after a big push.
Last year was 50, yes.
And then what did you sell?
47.
Come on, Dante, you're 3 grand away. We were one call away. But my point is for that question, Cameron, is if you said you were committed to going after a 50K push, what was the gap? What didn't align? That is for you to reflect on, right? Itself. You might say, I'm committed to doing this, right? But what fell short? That was really the question that I was trying to pose for that one, right? And an analogy that I'll give to you, Cameron, because a lot of people will think, well, I did commit to it. It just didn't work out. It's like, cool. If I, and I use this as an extreme example, right? Obviously, this is not true. It's never going to happen, but I use it as an extreme example to show you that you probably could get it done if you wanted to. Like if I held a gun to your head, Cameron, and I said, if you better sell 50 grand for this push period or else you'll die. What are you doing 24/7, day in and day out? Is you're probably finding a way to sell 50 grand, right? I use that as an extreme example to show you could do it. You're committed to doing it, but something fell short. Is it yourself, skill set, averages, something? And that's for you to reflect on that aspect. So you'll do it right now,
Okay.
sit with it and look through your past pushes. But that is the question. That is what I was getting at with that question.
Okay. So that's way more helpful.
Yeah, great. All right. Any other questions for me?
I got a question.
Mm-hmm.
How does he do it?
How
I
does he-
appreciate you for giving the talk, man. This was great. I couldn't hear it all, so please send me the recording. I got in what I did, though, and I took a few screenshots of some of your slides, and I just want to say thanks, Alan. I'm looking forward to this summer. I'm going to crush SC2.
Or Zach, appreciate you, bro. Great, guys. Anything else, Dante?
I got nothing else. If there's any last minute questions, feel free to hang out here and ask them. If we don't have any more questions, then we'll call it here, guys. I have the recording here for the call. I'll try and see if I can upload and put some timestamps on it, and then I'll upload it, put it onto our group meets for Lone Star and Gulf Coast. So if you're not a part of those programs, you'll have to go to our team website to get those or get them from your coordinator. I'm gonna go ahead and put into the chat box our two websites for our events program. So give me some time here to get it uploaded and time stamped. So that way you guys can go ahead and go back and rewatch it. But outside of that, I think that should be just about everything. Like I said, if there's any last minute questions, feel free to hang out